Hey, what's going on, everyone? Darren Hesselink here, one of the new advisors at Ironwood, joined by the guru, the leader, Alex Pires, to do a cool market update. With everything going on over this last weekend, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what's going on in the market. Should we be worried? And that's why we wanted to do this video for you today. So let's dive into it. Alex, what do we say?
So the first thing that we need to, get in there is obviously these events are horrific and tragic, and we feel for everyone who's been affected, impacted, and whatnots. Unfortunately, when we talk about money, the stock market doesn't care. Okay, the stock markets, we need to kind of distance ourselves from the reality of humanity of the whole situation. So please don't take offense when we're just talking about numbers and the way that we expect markets to react. So the first thing I like to say whenever there is a big event that you see in the news, you're like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. That's going to affect the market. It's going to affect everything. Is what impact does that have on the number of iPhones sold? So, you know, think about what's happened in the last few days. Is that going to increase or decrease the sales of iPhones? Right? And I'm just using that as an example. You could pick any product you want. And if the answer is you don't think that's going to make a difference, well, then the profits shouldn't be affected, and therefore the stock shouldn't fall. So the first, instinct that people have is that the market's going to crash because there's something bad happening. Well, if you reframe it in those words, it makes more sense when the market doesn't do what you might think it would do. So is this going to impact the profits of, you name it, XYZ company? And if it doesn't, then it shouldn't move the stock.
No, I 100% agree with that too, because nothing has changed in my lifestyle in the last few days. I'm still buying gas. I'm still going to the grocery store. I'm still paying for all my phones, everything that I have. Nothing has really changed for me.
Right.
So I'm assuming that most businesses are probably feeling that same situation. I know, like with anything that I'm around business wise, nothing's really changed on my end.
Right. And when you're looking at these, I mean, if you remember back a couple of years when the Ukraine invasion happened, it was a slightly different story because Ukraine was a parts supplier for, a lot of auto manufacturers, things like that, and those factories were taken offline or destroyed or whatnot, and that made a difference. Okay, I'm not an expert on Iran, but I don't think we buy or sell a lot of things to them. I think there's economic sanctions going on there anyway, so it's not affecting the bottom line of major U.S. corporations.
Yeah. Now, one of the things people might wonder about, especially if they're hearing this in the media, would be, well, if they can't get their oil out, if something happens in the Strait of Hormuz, how do you say it? I don't know exactly, but what happens with that? Is there, central bank issues? Is there energy issues? Are there inflationary issues? What's going on with that? And what would your thoughts be?
So the first thing you need to remember is avoid the slippery slope fallacy, because the story goes, okay, they're going to close the strait, oil prices are going to go up, that's going to increase the producer price index, which is going to increase the CPI, which is going to make the Fed raise interest rates, and that's going to crash the market because it creates inflation. The exact opposite of what we've been wanting the last couple of years, lower interest rates to boost the market. Well, there's a lot of steps in there, and I don't know if you remember back in the was it the European debt crisis? It was the same story. It was like, okay, well, we don't really care about Spain and Ireland, but if they default, well, then maybe France defaults, and if France defaults, maybe UK defaults, and if UK defaults, then they're not going to pay Germany, and Germany defaults, and we care about that, right? So there's all these steps you have to get through before we really care as a stock market. Same thing here. Remember back, during Obama's presidency, uh, oil prices were what, 140 at some points?
Yeah.
Okay, and what happened? Did we have massive inflation? Did we have high interest rates? No.
No.
People
Yeah.
changed their behavior. Oil's at what, $80 or something right now? It's up a bunch from where it was, but it's way lower than it was a decade ago. So that's we're
74.83. It's up 5% today. But
yeah,
it,
It was up
But
more earlier.
over the course of the day, it hit a high of 77, and it's back down to 75 already.
Right. And there's been a guarantee by the president that's he's going, U.S. will ensure oil tankers going through there and provide naval escorts. I mean, this is very cynical, but if something bad happens in Africa, you'll notice we don't send troops. We don't send bombers. Okay. Something bad happens in the Middle East, and we're right there. Okay. The U.S., the global economy is going to keep that oil flowing. If they all possible, that oil is going to move. So I'm not really worried about these predictions. Again, back in the Kuwait War, if you remember, that was a long time ago, but they set the oil fields on fire. I think it was Saddam Hussein did that, and they told us it would take 100 years to put those fires out. Okay, miraculously they figured it out only a couple months later, I think, and
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
So
Okay. So then what else do we have here? Maybe issues around, history says markets overreact to geopolitics and recover quickly. Or, however, with regime change, now the stated goal, is there a temporary blip or a fundamental shift in the global risk premium that requires a permanent reduction in equity exposure? So are we buying the dip? Are we doing anything here that makes sense?
So in order to buy the dip, we need to have a significant dip. So far, hasn't happened. I mean, Monday was up, today was down a bunch, and then not that much. So at this point, we have what, a 0.5% dip? That's not much of a dip. So the risk right now that the market could be pricing in is, or not fully pricing in, but worried about, would be what I would call contagion. Okay, which is okay. We got this Iran thing. They gave us a nice plan, right? We've been planning this for 6 months. We went in, we hit the targets we expected to hit, and basically pulled it off without a hitch. Okay. And then today we had some sideways movement where, oh, now we're in Lebanon. I'm not sure why we're doing that. And we don't have a good story. And so is it, while we're over there, we might as well, or is it an isolated event? Like who's next? So do we just start expanding? That's what I think rattled the markets today. And hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully this is a one and done. We just sit there with, unfortunately, a threatening presence while they pick a leader that's somewhat more to our liking. Okay, which hopefully will calm the situation down and we can be out of there in a number of months. Okay, again, I don't think we have troops on the ground, and I don't know that we need them as long as we have a fleet, if you will, an aircraft. So,
Well, and that's why this is an ongoing thing, and we'll more than likely be doing more of these throughout this crises, whatever you want to call it, just to keep everyone abreast on what's going on.
right. But unfortunately or fortunately, from a financial perspective, this is not currently a crisis. This is currently a humanitarian issue. Very concerning, very upsetting to many people, I'm sure. But financially, market doesn't care.
Yeah, it would have to have been like some enormous bomb blew up the Strait of Hormuz and no one could ship oil out.
And
Now
that's
we're
something,
talking about something serious, and that would be a risk.
right. And there are those risks. And actually, kind of funny, brings AI into the topic, which is if you go on social media, you can see all sorts of horrible things happening in videos, right? Because people are generating videos that look cool and didn't really happen, I guess, hopefully.
Yeah, I've seen a
I've seen
few
some pretty
already.
bad ones already.
I think the
So,
first comment underneath a lot of those videos is this real?
right,
Or is it AI? And it's hard to even trust what we're seeing at all from
right.
anyone.
I mean, one good thing that I've been doing, and I've been doing that periodically through the last few days, you open in private browser or and what does Apple call it?
Incognito, that's Google.
Incognito. Okay. You open one of those and then search for the news. Because then they're not going to feed you what they think you want to hear. They're going to feed you just a blank slate. And if you look, you'll get one article on uh, this situation in the Middle East, and then you'll have 19 articles on, Southwest and Nancy Guthrie and, all sorts of other things. Even the media is not taking it all that seriously at this time. So,
Any other questions I had were probably tending more towards emerging markets and supply chains on that side, but it's hard to tell so far.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that this is the action. Let's put it this way. If this truly was planned for 6 months, joint operation with Israel, which is what they told us it was, we don't save key targets for day 7, right? You go in, you launch all your missiles or whatever they are at your key targets on day 1, and day 2 maybe. And at this point, it should be relatively scattered, targets of opportunity or defensive measures, as opposed to achieving objectives. I really think we're just there with a big hammer to, make sure they pick the right leader or government.
Okay. So anything final you want to add for all our clients?
If there is a dip, or of course, if you're particularly concerned or if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We will be reacting depending on what happens. But at this time, there's no action to be taken because the market seems to be shrugging it off.
Okay. You heard it from Alex. Tuesday, March 3rd, we're going to launch this quickly here and get this out to you with this new version of the market update that we'll be playing with and coming up with as we keep launching these in the future. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, like Alex said, reach out to us, please. Don't not call if you're concerned about anything at all. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you, Darren.